Yeah? Great. Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm the Green Program Guide. Everyone here knows me, but for anyone looking online, I'm going to give a little introduction about what we've been doing here for the last couple days. So we have 12 amazing students who are super relaxed, super easygoing, but super keen to learn and very, very, very smart. And we've been traveling around Iceland learning about sustainable energy for the past 7-8 days. I had lots of really cool experiences and just a really great time. But throughout this time, they've been working on a Capstone Project that has encouraged them to think about using sustainability and their education in an entrepreneurial way. And we have some very exciting projects, 3 projects. The way this will work is it's a 15-minute presentation, 5 to 10 minutes for questions from the audience, your fellow students, or anyone online who wants to ask a question. I think Gloria will have some questions for us as well. I'll give a 5-minute warning, a 3-minute warning, and a 1-minute warning when you guys are almost out of time. But no stress, it's very relaxed. Yeah, so I'll just hand it off to the first group, Greenhouse, if you'd like to come and start your presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Elizabeth.
I'm Liz.
I'm Melina.
And I'm Maya.
And our company is Greenhouse Hotels. And we are going to be addressing sustainability in the travel industry by talking about a sustainable accommodation that can be used by national park travelers. So a little background about our name. Obviously, our business partnership formed in Iceland, so we wanted to pay homage to that by our name, Greenhus. Hus is the Icelandic word for house. So yeah.
Okay, so the problem that we are addressing is the wasteful tendencies of the travel industry, and specifically the hotel and motel industry itself. And as you can see, a lot of money is spent on electricity and energy each year in hotels in each room, because each guest doesn't see this cost coming out of their pocket, so it's pretty a wasteful industry. And our solution is to create an energy efficient hotel that maintains the satisfaction of customers during their stay, while encouraging sustainable accommodations to guests to bring home with them to their own hometowns once they return back from travel, through all of these methods, such as less damage to the environment, broadening sustainable lifestyle choices, and reducing operation costs for hotels, by using less energy to begin with.
So why do we want to solve this problem? As we mentioned, the U.S. hotel industry is very wasteful, as well as being very large. So when people travel, they don't normally think of sustainability. Instead, it's get the biggest bang for your buck and overusing hotel amenities. And current hotels focus more on comfort and ease than on sustainability in general. And the national parks do see a lot of tourism each year, and nearby accommodations don't align with the values of these parks. How to solve this problem? We want to repurpose old buildings and renovate them using eco-friendly and energy-efficient appliances. And to do this, we would partner with local companies and local artists. as well as provide bike rentals to the surrounding area to promote sustainable transportation. And what to do to solve this problem? We want to expand into the U.S. National Park of the Great Smoky Mountains because it is the most populated park or most traveled park in the U.S. And the tourists that normally go to these parks are already environmentally conscious and care about nature. So we want to create a hotel for them that align with their values.
So we identified 5 different sustainable development goals. The first being the affordable and clean energy. We're focusing on utilizing more energy efficient appliances and to promote more sustainable modes of transportation. The second is the industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We will be innovating the travel industry with more sustainable infrastructure by renovating old buildings and promoting sustainable communities within these national park areas. The third is responsible consumption and production. We are focused on supplying sustainable products and more responsibly sourced food products. The fourth is the climate action. We are addressing the climate crisis in a wasteful industry, such as the travel industry, and promoting more mindful consumption. The last is partnership for the goals. We will be partnering with sustainable brands for our products, appliances, and other items within the hotel, and partnering with local and indigenous artists.
Okay, so our business model. The key resources we would need to make this business a reality would be the old buildings that we would renovate and repurpose. We would also need the funding to do so, which to begin with would be a lot, but to purchase the building themselves and then follow through with all the renovations and upgrades. We would also need close proximity to the national parks to make sure that our hotel would cater to this demographic. We would also need employees to run our hotel, as well as the eco-friendly appliances and technologies to make sure that it is an energy efficient hotel. The activities that we would provide would be the service itself of the shelter and accommodations that go along with being a hotel for our guests. We would also have a bike rental service so that our customers could travel to and from the national parks without their cars to make sure that it is an eco-friendly mode of transportation. And our partners would include the eco-friendly appliance companies as well as any biodegradable or household good companies that can make sure that any consumption is low carbon emitting and doesn't use a lot of energy. As well as a potential partnership with a bike rental company to lower our initial costs by not having to purchase a new fleet. And key stakeholders include customers, us, the owners, and any investors that would like to help us start out so we wouldn't have as much costs in the beginning, as well as any architects or construction companies that could help us with these renovations, and local authorities that could help us with permits and licenses to build our hotels.
Okay, so the channels for reaching our partners and the local artists. We want to reach out by email, by phone call, any way to reach these people to see if they want to join our company. To reach out to our customers, we really value the power of social media, and we think that establishing our own website and social media pages are a great way to reach out to our potential guests. We want to advertise on web searches as well, as people search for these national park accommodations, and potentially billboards in the area to help bring people into Greenhouse. And we don't want to also underestimate the power of word of mouth. It's a great way to get our name out there, to get people to hear about us. So value proposition, the social value proposition is it's an eco-friendly lodging option for environmentally conscious travelers. We have low impact transportation available, locally sourced art and food. For our impact measures, we track our energy use and carbon emissions annually, as well as track food waste, and we want to publicly post those reports to show our efficiency in comparison with competitors. Our customer value proposition is that we offer a travel experience that aligns with sustainable values and an opportunity for our travelers to travel while reducing their carbon footprint.
And our 2 key segments for our company would be our beneficiaries and our customers. Our beneficiaries would be anyone that we partner with for appliances or materials, as well as the local artists. Anyone who gives us initial support, such as an investor, and brand recognition and promotion from our customers. And our customers look like anyone who wants to travel to a U.S. national park, and these people tend to be environmentally conscious, understand sustainable practices and their importance, and would be willing to pay slightly more for a hotel that aligns with their personal beliefs.
For our cost structures, the most expensive, or not, but most expenditure areas are the initial purchase of the building and the land in these national parks, and as well as the renovation and furnishing of these hotels with these eco-friendly appliances and goods. And as we size up, we expect the expenditure to remain similar, but if we have partners, hopefully they'll be able to lower their costs of the products as we continue to use them in the future.
So our revenue initially would come from the rooms themselves and then our bike rental service. In the future, we could expand this to a restaurant that caters locally sourced foods, but to begin with, these would be our two primary methods. And again, we would hope that we could be a little bit more pricey than nearby hotels in hopes that our customers would be willing to pay more to stay at a place that aligns with their morals and values.
And in the future, we could also invest in other products such as different appliance brands, household goods, the food industry. We could use like different local products and other energy sources, as well as we could expand our locations to different national parks. The type of intervention, as we've mentioned, is to provide a service of sustainable shelter for these travelers. And our potential business partnerships we could look at would be the bike rental company, the Cades Cove Trading Company. They would provide us bike services from the hotel, and then we would give them more business. The second being the Beko Appliances. They're a sustainable and energy efficient brand, and these three stats are their main focus on their website.
So our sustainability complex primarily addresses three issues on the individual, household, and community and neighborhood level. So individually, we would hope that our customers would be reducing their energy consumption with these appliances and infrastructure that we have built to help them mitigate energy use. And as a household, our hotel itself would use a lot less water and energy through our appliances and sustainably sourced items. And then as a community, we would hopefully bring this sustainable mindset to areas around national parks through all of our sustainable mindsets and practices. And then for all three, we'd hope that our customers would actually bring these home with them so that they continue to be individually sustainable and on a household and community level.
Okay, so obviously our case study is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. As mentioned, it is the most visited national park in the U.S. with over 800 miles of hiking trails, a large diversity in both plants and animals, and quite a few nearby towns with hotels. So these are the current hotels in the area. As you can see, they are your typical chain hotels that do not have sustainability as their core value. They're usually cheap, quick, easy places to stay. But with large carbon footprints. So the issues with these hotels is they often offer travel-sized plastic, shampoo, conditioners, energy-consuming appliances. They run their air conditioners all day, a lot of food waste, and single-use plastic usage. So these are what we want to address in Greenhouse. So this is a potential plot of land that can be renovated and refurbished. It has 132 rooms, 2 outdoor pools, and 10 acres of land. We want to start off with renovating 20 rooms, and hopefully it can expand from there. So when it comes to creating Greenhouse itself, we want to add these Beko appliances. As you can see, the oven, refrigerator, stackable laundry machines, air conditioning units, and a dishwasher. This is also the AwaySense shower head that we want to incorporate. It's a motion-detected shower head that changes water pressure depending on where in the shower you are in order to maximize your shower experience and minimize water usage. So we also want to improve insulation, install energy-saving LED lights, and have well-insulated showers to reduce energy loss through heat. So Greenhouse offers these sustainable and eco-friendly additions, like the bike rentals from Cades Cove. key card activated electricity system, and food waste monitoring. We also offer housekeeping by request. We also decorate with local and indigenous artists. As the Great Smoky Mountains are located on Cherokee land, we thought it would be important to incorporate indigenous art into our hotel. We also want to offer locally sourced food for our guests.
So with all of this new technology and different infrastructure, this is what our hotel rooms potentially could look like. And it would be decorated with local art depending on who we partnered with. So in addition to all of that, we would also incorporate lots of windows and balconies in our rooms because ultimately our customers did come to these national parks to experience the beauty of nature. So we want to make sure that that is a focal point of all of our rooms. And in addition to all of this, all necessary appliances will be within each room. Going along with our house feel, we want to make sure that our customers can do whatever they need without using lots of energy. And this will also make sure that all of these individual habits the customers can get used to, and it will help increase the chances of them seeing how easy it is and applying this to their daily lives at home once they return from their vacation.
So this is a rough breakdown of how much it would cost for the initial 20 rooms, with the land definitely being the most expensive element. And then all of the technology that goes into the rooms for the initial 20, and the initial fleet of 50 bikes. So the total is over 6.1 million. So is our project feasible? At this date, it is not, because startup cost is very unattainable. But ways that we could work to reduce this cost would be to work with our partners, Becco and Cadesco, to reach deals about the appliances and services that we would use from them, and they could potentially get benefits from us. Or we could also get investors to help distribute the startup cost over more parties. And we could also work with the landowner to start with a smaller piece of land, a reduced number of rooms to kind of test the idea in a market. And then if it succeeds, we can expand from there.
That is our presentation.
Yeah, I'll start off with a question while we wait for anyone else who has them. When you talk about reducing your carbon footprint, a lot of people drive a really long time to get to ways to this park. Would you maybe consider offering some sort of carbon offsetting for them to take care of other kinds of? What do you think about that kind of interaction?
To start out, we hadn't quite addressed that, but that's a really great idea. And with the plot of land that we picked out, it is 10 acres. So we could definitely incorporate something with that, maybe by planting trees to get people more involved or anything like that. We do have a lot of land to build off of and create more programs to offset any travel or emissions that people had to do to get to our hotel.
Anything else? Okay. My other question is what you would do with the existing appliances or stuff that already is in the property that you guys have purchased. What's your plan to deal with that?
So I don't think we included the stat, but Becco Appliances is actually working towards 100% recycled material. So maybe selling back our old appliances to them, they could use the material to create newer, more energy efficient appliances. So yeah, working with partners to recycle the material.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions?
I just wanted to say I think it's a brilliant idea. The university's office are already there, and it's very, very enjoyable to listen to you describe how you can do it. So, well done. Thank you. Yeah. No worries.
Sorry, we're gonna give a little more time for anyone online who wants to ask some questions. Have you guys thought about, you guys spoke a lot about how you want your customers to take what they've learned at your accommodation and like bring that home. Did you think about like sustainability education, and what would that look like for you guys?
Well, initially, we would focus on teaching our customers about how easy these appliances are to incorporate into their daily lives. So to begin with, it would be already continuing the practices they already use, already washing their clothes, already cooking, just using it in a more sustainable method. And then hopefully through things like our bikes or locally sourced foods and all of that, they could incorporate that when they go home to maybe change their habits a little bit more. But then again, as we expand, we could always incorporate more education methods and bring in experts on the issue if we get more funds to help educate people.
We could also add, like, around here, we've seen, like, all the labels and posters, so we can add those, like, maybe a little sign that says how much they're saving compared to their average appliances that they would use at home.
Great. So I have 2 questions from Lori. First of all, he says, "Great presentation." Woohoo! The first question is, have you considered other land agreements, loans, mortgage, land lease from current owners?
So the land that we showed was just one option that we found. There's plenty of places that we could try instead, think places that were maybe a little cheaper, smaller land. But yeah, so I think just looking around the area and trying to find better real estate would be a good option for us to help reduce our costs as well.
Question number 2 is, eco-terrorism just seems to make sense. Why do you think hotels don't do this already? And do you expect other hotels to shift in the same direction?
So as we could see, the initial cost of all these appliances is quite a lot. And it is probably cheaper for a lot of hotels just to ignore the costs up front and encourage quick turnover with a lot of these customers to increase revenue. But again, a lot of hotels spend lots of money on electricity throughout the course of a year. So hopefully if we showed them that, yes, it might be more expensive up front, but it's more sustainable long term in terms of money, we could potentially create a change in the market.
Okay, and I think this is the last question. Number 3, what are your top 3 most impactful low-tech sustainability efforts within your hotel?
So obviously a huge focus is our sustainable appliances, changing out the typical appliances for things that are more energy efficient, energy saving, water saving. That's a huge one. Our bike rental service is another important one that we wanted to focus on. Getting people to travel in a more sustainable way and using vehicles that don't rely on gas or diesel. And also we have our shower heads, which I think are really cool to incorporate, and I think it helps. I think showers are a place where people don't really think about there's environmental impact of them, and this is a great way for people to realize that there is a more sustainable option when it comes to water consumption as well.
Congratulations, and thank you so much. So next up we have Smart Drip.
Smart Drip.
Hello.
Wait.
I think it's to that.
Oh.
Tell me when, are you ready or? Oh, okay. All right, so hello, I'm Meredith. This is Aaron, Landon, and Jose. And for our Capstone project, we developed Smart Drip. So the problem that we wanted to attack is there is a lot of wasted water and energy from agricultural use. So 70% of water withdrawals are from agriculture, and 60% of the 70% is wasted. And so when water is wasted, energy is also wasted. And it's important to note that 30% of a farm's total energy use is from pumping water. And we also wanted to identify the most used crop in the U.S. because we're targeting U.S. crops, and that is corn, so that is what we are focusing on with Smart Drip. So how are we going to solve this problem? We wanted to design a subsurface drip irrigation method to maximize the water use efficiency. So we want to take each farm and analyze the soil and the location and be able to develop a system that takes that into account and then reduces the water use. And then we also wanted to be able to easily identify the malfunctions and the location in the system and the sensors so that those can be fixed and also help save water and energy. So what is Smart Drip? It is an integrated soil monitoring system. So there will be pretty much two parts to this. So the system itself, you will have the SDI installed in the field along each row of corn. And in the system, there will be the sensors, equally spaced. It depends on the field, but normally equally spaced. And then the watering schedule will be determined by the composition of the soil. And then there also will be an application for your phone that connects to the sensors. And so when you put in the data from the field, like the soil type, it's for corn, but that will be taken into account, and then that will communicate with the sensors and be able to monitor when the water goes on and off. And within the app, we will have weather information for where the field is. We will also have sensor information, so if there's an issue, say in sensor A1, it will say sensor A1 is off, or if there's a clog, it will tell you where. And then also in the field information, we will have the soil moisture, so what the sensor is measuring. Also the soil composition, either the farmer can put that in, or we have created the idea that we will allow a soil scientist to go out to the field and identify it. And then it will also tell you the water quantity that is being used every day. And yeah, I mentioned the soil scientist coming out.
So this is a sketch of what we kind of think this system will look like. The profile view is the view if you were to cut the soil right next to the sensors. So you can see the sensors are in between the rows of corn. Additionally, you can see the sensor labels. So like Meredith was saying, like A1 here, maybe that sensor is messed up. So we need to go out to A1 and you know exactly where the SDI is either clogged or messed up in that location. Additionally, you can see the top view, so we'll have an intake through the trunk line, which is just like the source pipe of water, and then branching off of that, we'll have the subsurface irrigation lines. And again, you can see each row is labeled by letter, so there's row A, B, C, and so on, and then along the rows, they are numbered. So that's just kind of showing the numbering system.
Provided a mock-up of the application. So on the, we wanted the app to provide, once again, weather info, field info, and sensor info. On the left, you will see that we were providing some field info. You're able to track the current status of the field. Notice how we have the daily water usage for today. And we provided a little warning because it seems that soil moisture seems to be a little lower than ideal. And then you could also enter in information that you know about the soil, such as the pH and the soil type. Over on the right, we have sensor info. In here, it seems that one of the sensors isn't working, so we're providing a warning. And there will be further instructions, if necessary, on how to deal with that irregular sensor. And you could also see whether or not the system is on or off.
So what are Smart Drip's implications? We are estimating, based on research, that 1 acre of corn uses about 600,000 gallons of water a year for irrigation. We've also found that subsurface irrigation systems that are working properly save approximately 30% of water usage. So over the course of 10 years, we expect like a little over 6 million liters of water to be saved if our smart drip aligns with the current research in the industry. Additionally, after 10 years, we expect profitability to increase by about $50,000 for a 15-acre cornfield, which is pretty small scale for a cornfield. These numbers are based off of the average bushels per acre and the average cost per bushel.
Yeah, and so here we're talking about some of the sustainable development goals that our company's addressing. And the first one is clean water and sanitation, which is just providing clean water sustainable way, which obviously our company's hoping to do. We're minimizing the water wasted in other irrigation systems. Also, we're addressing goal 9, which is industry innovation infrastructure. Obviously, we're kind of trying to promote more innovative methods for irrigating and trying to switch over more farmers from more traditional methods to a smarter, more efficient way. The third one is goal 12, which is responsible consumption. Obviously, we're trying to consume water responsibly here and trying to cut down on any water wasted to soil evaporation and water that wouldn't go into the plants at all. And 13, we're trying to address climate change and climate action by just combining water and energy usage in a industry which is known to use a lot of water. And so here we're just looking at the sustainability complex. Where's or how far does smart drips impact reach? And we identified obviously it's going to impact farmers the most. This is a method or a company that's aimed at farmers to make them more efficient with their water usage, obviously, and also has an impact in communities and neighborhoods because if you have community farmers that are using their water more efficiently, you can cut back on the water usage and energy usage in that area, and prevent droughts, fewer power outages, and just make more sustainable neighborhood. So here we have some key resources for what we need to actually make this company and get started. So first off, we're going to need research developers, people that are going to look into more, how we can use different materials, different drip lines, different sensors, make them more affordable, make them more cost efficient. So we're going to definitely want to continue researching that so we can make this more of a feasible plan. We're also going to need app developers. Obviously, this is an app. We need people to create the app, make it look nice on your phone, and then also, stand by and be able to answer any questions or troubleshoot errors with users. Definitely going to need sales representatives, people to get the word out about, what is Smart Drip and get it, into people's heads and let people see it. We're also going to need a business team, obviously, people to manage it, run it. Any business needs, management, human resources, and all that. And last but not least, we definitely need materials, which was, if a farmer wants us to install everything and order all the materials for them, we're going to need to order the drip lines, the moisture sensors, have an installment team if they need it. And so that's kind of what we need.
And identifying our partners and key stakeholders. We have the farmers, obviously. We'll also be inviting stockholders to join us. We'll be working with developers, IT, the soil scientists, and then the manufacturers who will be actually making our product. And how will we reach our potential customers? We'll be sending out sales representatives to agricultural conventions, farmers markets. We'll be getting in the home improvement stores and sending out plenty of mail and digital advertisements. What we plan on doing with our surplus, we want to do more research into our materials. We plan on doing further research on wholesale manufacturers, and then we'll be improving the app, increasing our marketing, and doing research in hopes of expanding into other crops besides corn. Identifying our segments. We have our customers, once again, the farmers. These are farmers seeking out sustainable options so they can save water and increase their crop productivity. And then we also have our beneficiaries, which are the restaurants and individual consumers who are wanting to make more sustainable food choices.
So getting our self off the ground, we're going to need some initial money. We're going to rely mainly on grant funding. We're hoping to apply for $450,000 worth of grants. The first one being Verizon's Small Business Grant. That's approximately $10,000. That's the cap. The next one is Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education Grant, which has a maximum of $250,000 that we can earn. Additionally, the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research Grant, which is $115,000 a year, and after you win the grant, you get it for 3 years. So that will be kind of a constant income, which would be nice. Additionally, the Water Smart Grant, which is $75,000. And then in addition to that, we have some other funding opportunities such as GoFundMe, hackathons, private investors, etc.
And so here we have some a breakdown just like what it'll cost. Obviously, just as a company, we're going to need to pay for the app development, which we estimate to be for about $40,000. And then, the cost will vary widely depending on the farmer's needs. We're going to need to look at someone's farm, see how much they need, how many acres and stuff like that. So we have material costs per acre, but we expect for about a 15-acre farm, it'll be about $130,000 for installation, ordering, installment, everything they need if they just want to start from scratch.
So our revenue, we have two options sort of on how to get revenue. The first is the essential package. So we expect every farmer to have this essential package that's basically like the meat of our product, which includes material revenue, which we are planning on upcharging by 25%. And then we have the monthly subscription for our app, which will be $49.99 a month. And then advertisement. So we, based on some research, we found it's about 16 cents per advertisement. And if we have 5 advertisements per day, that's about $300 per user per year. And then the potential add-ons, if a farmer decides that they want us to install the system, then that will obviously cost them a little bit more. And then additionally, we have a consulting soil scientist that's optional again. So our value of our company goes beyond just monetary. We believe there's social value to our product, being that we're reducing water waste and greenhouse gases. Additionally, we are sustainably producing corn, which is the largest crop in the United States. We're going to measure this impact based on comparing the water usage and the crop yields from before and after Smart Drip is implemented. And we expect customers to also have value from this because they'll have increased profitability and they'll decrease time troubleshooting their leaks.
So while doing research, we did find a similar company called Blue Tentacles. They are based in Italy, and they also do smart irrigation integration. And so we noticed that they also had soil sensors, remote control actuators, crop-specific watering algorithms. But while just like looking at the website, it just seemed that the tech and the technology, it was just seemed directed more towards established farmers. And while that's great, our goal here at SmartDrip is to be more inclusive and to develop sustainable agriculture to be more accessible for our less experienced farmers, which is why we included the soil scientists. And then once again, they're in Italy. We're in America. We're focusing on American agriculture, which is why we focused on corn first.
And so the big question, is Smart Drip feasible? There are both reasons as to why it may be and why it may not be. So first, why it may be feasible is farmers can replace their irrigation systems in between growing seasons, so that will definitely be feasible for them to do. Also, the sensors and drip tape have already been developed, so we will be able to find manufacturers to purchase those from. Also, the technology exists to connect the sensors to the application, so that will not be a problem. And additionally, an estimate of our startup cost, including the development of the app and hiring some soil scientists, is $114,000. And as we said, we have potential funding that will easily cover that if we get a small portion of it. But why it may not be feasible is negotiating with manufacturers may be complicated, and being able to negotiate with them. Also, farmers may be hesitant to change their systems. They're always stuck in their ways, it seems like, and may not want to switch, so it might take some convincing. Also, it might take some time to see the difference in energy use. And then lastly, it is a high initial investment for the farmers due to the installation and the materials. We estimated that $10,600 per acre, but that's based on a worst case scenario and is also highly variable due to the manufacturer that we are able to negotiate with. There are credits and Talk. Do you have any questions?
Should we just start the interview?
I wanted to ask, did you guys think about how much energy this would use and how much that would cost for the farmers after implementing the system?
Are you talking about the energy of the sensors themselves? Yeah, so most of the time these sensors are wired to a solar panel. So ideally they should be self-sustaining and not require any additional energy. If anything, this is saving farmers energy just because of the reduction of water use, which will also reduce the pump energy requirements. Anyone else?
I'll address Lori's questions first, and then based on his questions, I'll figure out how many of mine I want to ask. But great project, very thought-provoking, which is why there are so many questions. I have so many questions. Lori says, a very interesting presentation. Number one, this is kind of high-tech solution that needs to be compared to the low-tech alternatives already in use. Perhaps you've answered this already, but how does this compare in terms of cost savings to the buyer versus upfront costs in comparison to the standard timed watering systems?
Yeah. So obviously it's a really high initial investment, and it's very hard to determine exactly what the initial cost will be if we don't have specific acreage. So we were using 15 acres a lot for our examples, and it was about $10,000 per acre. So it's going to be about $150,000 for initial investment. But based off how much we expect the yield to increase, which was about 50%, we didn't include in the slide, but we were hoping for at least within 10 years they should be able to pay off that initial investment of the installation and stuff like that, just based off the increase in the yield. That's not including the water they're saving or any of the energy that they're paying either.
Yeah. To add to that, I think that the initial cost is high, but after you front that money, it's only $600 a year, which I think would be pretty comparable to the low-tech solutions that are already in place.
I have a spin-off question for this. You guys did talk about the benefit for the increased yield, but did you do any analysis on potential savings of water that the farmers might also incur?
Yes. So we assumed that about 600,000 gallons of water is used per acre, and we found research that suggests that 30% of that water will be reduced. Over 10 years, that comes out to about 6.8 million liters of water saved.
That's a big number. Okay. So Lori's second question is, how do the materials required per system compared to the conventional systems? Does it require more or less material?
Our materials are definitely going to require more, just in terms of the conventional systems, like sprinklers. Those are sprinklers. I forgot the name of them, but those ones are definitely a lot more low tech and easier, and they're going to require a lot less materials because they don't require lines of drip tape going underneath each row of plants, essentially. So the material cost will definitely be higher. Definitely going to need more materials than just one tube to a sprinkler. But even with that said, it's still going to be saving water and saving energy, which is our main focus in this project.
And the third question from Lori. As an engineer, seeing an array of sensors brings me anxiety, as any one of them could malfunction at any given time. Can you go over any design features that consider maintenance?
So one of the big issues of subsurface drip irrigation is the clogging aspect. So along any portion of the tape, there could be clogging, and then some of the crops won't be watered, which is a big issue because it's underground, so you don't know what's happening. So the idea of the sensor itself is to indicate those errors, but we do understand that sensors also have errors, and so that's part of the app that will show you whether or not the sensor is malfunctioning, because I agree that is a lot of moving parts, but whenever we have items in place to identify where the issues are, troubleshooting becomes a lot simpler, easier, and saves time.
Thank you, Laura, for the questions. We're on to my questions, but I think he's covered most of mine. Just one question about your crop type and what kind of research would need to go into scaling so that you could be applicable for other crops, and what would need to change, if anything, for your solution to be applicable for a variety of different crops.
Yeah, so honestly, there's already been some systems similar to ours that deal mostly with other crops. We couldn't really find anything dealing specifically with corn, so that's why we wanted to introduce this. But there's, there wouldn't be too much differing in terms of the raw materials that you need. We still would use the subsurface drip irrigation, and we still use sensors, and the bulk of our research would definitely be going into making those more cost effective, and seeing how we can drive down the cost of manufacturing those and getting those out. But all that would really change would just be the spacing, what kind of tube, how much water is coming up from each emitter, the spacing between that, and then also just the moisture type, and how much moisture is being pumped into the plants when they need it. And and that's all something that we would hope would be taken care of in the development of the app with the system. We hopefully have a soil scientist on staff to oversee different how, but depending on the plant and the soil, how the water is going to be pumped in there and what the schedule is going to look like. Right.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, this is based on corn spacing, which is 30-inch rows apart, and then each plant itself is 6 inches apart. So that's a pretty dense crop. And if anything, I think changing the crop would decrease the initial investment for farmers.
Really good. Yeah, I just have some comments. I thought it was really cool to see to have a bit of a feeling it's where we're going to the future. So good job on that. And yeah, it's really nice to see a project that is going to the agriculture system, because it's so big and it's so important. Also, this water question is going to be huge in the upcoming future, so I think it's brilliant to focus on that. And yeah, I was just really happy with it. So thank you so much. Yeah, so we can have any more questions? Okay. Brilliant.
Okay. And last but definitely not least, we have a very clever name, which I will bring up. Nope. Be Dirty Walls.
Okay.
So we are Be Dirty Walls, and this is our project on fixing the feasibility of food waste prevention and composting.
So, meet our team first. I'm Anastasia. I'm currently studying environmental studies and continuing into my graduate degree at the New School for Environmental Policy and Sustainability Management.
I'm Delaney O'Brien. I have my Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science from University of Florida, and I am currently working on my master's in Global Sustainability at University of South Florida.
I'm Jackson Reynolds. I'm working on my Bachelor's in Science in physics at Fordham University.
And I'm Caitlin Lose, and I already received my Bachelor of Science in Material Science Engineering from Virginia Tech.
All right, so we want to start with our why this is important, how we're going to address it, and what our product is going to be. So why is our project important? The average person wastes around 231 pounds every year of food, and the restaurant industry actually loses an estimated $162 billion per year due to food wastes. And this is really unfortunate because nearly 1 billion people actually go hungry in our world every single day. Food waste is also a huge issue because it clogs up landfills and it wastes a lot of energy in transportation and production. And food systems actually contribute 19 to 29% of global anthropogenic greenhouse gases. On another note, limited community involvement and public education in sustainability solutions limits the progression of our communities towards adopting all the various sustainable solutions that everyone has been coming up with. And this matters to us as a team because we're really passionate about the environment and creating green spaces in our urban settings. And we're all very passionate about food, and we want to be able to enjoy our food knowing that it supports sustainability. So we're going to tackle this issue of excessive food waste in landfills by encouraging restaurants to compost their food scraps, and we're going to provide access to fresher, sustainably grown ingredients for restaurants in addition to giving them seasonal native plant options by installing our Be Dirty walls. So what is that? A Be Dirty wall is going to be a honeycomb lattice vertical growing space that restaurants can utilize for decoration as well as insulation, and they will use compostable food scraps from their restaurants put into biodegradable cups that they will put into this honeycomb structure on the walls, and they will plant seasonal native plants, and that will provide a beautiful and practical display that can be used both indoors and outdoors. And the excess compost from the restaurants will be sold by our company to reduce the use of synthetic fertilizers in the local area. The Sustainable Development Goals that our project addresses include SDG 2, ending hunger and achieving food security and improved nutrition by increasing the availability of fresh fruits and vegetables in the local community. SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, specifically target 9.4, to upgrade infrastructure and retrofit industries to make them more sustainable. SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities. We want to make cities more sustainable by reducing the food waste that we're sending to landfills and by also adopting composting skills in the community. SDG 12, by encouraging reduction of food loss. And lastly, SDG 13, climate action, by increasing local CO2 capture by increasing green spaces in our cities.
All right, so as a case study / location for our initial implementation of Be Dirty Walls would be Brooklyn. We chose Brooklyn because it has a high amount of foot traffic, a lot of people passing restaurants. There's a strong sense of community, and especially in New York City, I'd say a lot more people are looking to create more sustainable solutions in an urban setting and looking to work with their local economies, local businesses more. Plants stand out in these areas. A lot of people are looking to grow their own plants, know where their food is coming from, be more aware of their seasonal plants and crops, and also there's a huge thriving restaurant culture. You can walk pretty much down any block and find a lot of places to eat. So with Brooklyn, we also have the potential for both indoor and outdoor installation because some places have outdoor dining as well as backyards in their restaurants, but also indoor settings would support our system as well. We are also trying to address the issue of food deserts in Brooklyn. There's a lot of places with lack of access to fresh, nutritious food, so this is a great way to incorporate that, at least on a smaller scale at first, in an urban setting. And lastly, there is an increased need for sustainable solutions globally dealing with food as we have climate change affecting crops and a lot of waste that we've mentioned. In our sustainability complex, we touch on a couple of different levels. Regionally and provincially, we address the regional sustainability by overall decreasing the amount of energy decreasing the amount of energy by reducing food waste. City impacts include increasing sustainable and healthy produce options in local restaurants. We build community, and on a neighborhood level, we have more participation in sustainable solutions and education by getting people more immersed in this type of action, more local businesses on this level, and just people being more aware of what's growing in that season. On an individual level, people can make the active choice to eat at these places or also grow their own crops based on the inspiration from them and implement sustainable solutions in their own businesses, households, etc. Continuing, usually one meal at a restaurant generates about half a pound of food waste, which really builds up, especially in Brooklyn/New York City. So New York City has the highest rates of food waste in any urban setting in the United States. Per restaurant, we have about 150 to 300 pounds of waste created daily. In kilo, that would be between 70 and 150 kilo. So that's a lot. And based on that, if we're selling this compost on a daily amount per restaurant, we could make about $1,000 once that compost is ready to be sent out. So there's a lot of opportunity for selling and making compost based off of this location. Some sample seasonal crops that restaurants can grow is based on seasons. We have in the winter kale, leeks, and Brussels sprouts, which people love, enjoy, and it's easy to cook with. In the spring, things like radishes, asparagus, and thyme. In the summer, we have more fruits growing, like wild blackberries, wild strawberries, eggplant. And in the fall, just as a sample, dandelion leaves, lettuce, and cucumbers. So some of us definitely recognize these names, but it'd be even better to eat it fresh, pick it fresh, and have it in a restaurant. We also would be providing restaurants with seed packets, which they would grow in the compost. So that's all our resources. We can easily kind of harvest these things from parks or other gardening settings, make the seeds, and then resell them. It's about $3 to $10 per packet, but we also will have packages per season that a restaurant can buy of a variety of crops. Just to reiterate the benefits of composting, by composting we're using these nutrients and materials that would otherwise go to landfill, but now we're using it for a good reason. It will replenish existing soil, but also helps create more soil. It will feed plants all the nutrients that they want and help them grow better. And ultimately, in the long run, it can replace or reduce chemical fertilizers that use a lot of energy and resources. And as we've discussed here, we have only a finite amount of resources when it comes to chemical fertilizers, and a lot of the resources are synthetic. So this is a great way to start transitioning to a more sustainable solution, as food never runs out for us as of now.
So one of the companies that we do want to partner with is called the Earth Cube. So this is essentially a composting machine. There's two different types of Earth Cubes. There's the fully clad, which has like an industrial exterior. It could be used inside the restaurant or just as protection and just to improve the look of the cube. And then the naked Earth Cube, which does the exact same thing, it just doesn't look as pretty. And essentially with this partnership, we hope to offer to restaurants these machines at a reduced price, so that we encourage composting in their own facilities, but we'll also have these in our facilities as well, so that if they do not have the accommodations to do so, we will also be composting a lot of their food waste. So to go on to the actual model of what we want to do, it was inspired by this restaurant in Spain that actually plants grasses in their interior, but we're expanding it to more an agricultural use of actually planting plants that you can grow as foods. So our pricing model is based off square meter footage, and the structure is made of a polymer that's comprised of bamboo fibers and polylactic acid. Yeah. So PLA is actually known to be a biodegradable polymer, but by making it into a composite with bamboo fibers, it actually has better, if not equivalent, if not better properties than the current PLA polymer. In addition, it does cost more because of that. It's not very widely researched in terms of feasibility for industrial purposes, but because we are doing this at a very low scale, it's very feasible for us to utilize. It's also will be injection molded, so kind of in the bottom left corner you can kind of see it's like a hexagonal shape, and you can actually orient it in any type of design that you would like instead of just a square. So if you have a restaurant that's like wants to add more design to the exterior or interior of your restaurant, it's a great way to just add some color. And it's also will be injection molded, so that essentially just means you're putting hot polymer into a mold and it just forms the shape of a mold that you already have, and you can utilize that same machinery like over and over again, which is a very sustainable way to process polymers because there's very little excess material, and it's also just sustainable anyways because processing the actual polymer blend is very easy, and it's very sustainable, and also post-consumer wise it biodegrades. So
All right. So I'd like to discuss the business model for Be Dirty Walls. So we will be working with some very important resources, including the materials for our walls, the labor to create our walls, and then some warehouse space that we have located and a vehicle to transport all of our equipment and compost. So partners and key shareholders will be, of course, our clients, the restaurants or business owners. And then we will also contact local nurseries and farmers for different native seeds and seasonal seeds that we can then distribute to our clients. And then we hope to use any excess compost and then sell it to landscaping companies that can be used in public parks projects or various other architectural endeavors that they may have. What we will be doing is installing the Be Dirty Walls into our restaurants. We will be checking up on these periodically and managing the compost, make sure the plants are growing well, and we will also be providing an educational service to these clients to make sure they know how to grow these plants and how to most effectively and efficiently use their food wastes to grow their own ingredients. The food waste problem in landfills is a huge issue, and we hope to intervene this by incentivizing sustainable food growth and then providing these educational programs to these restaurants. How will we get the word out? We will do two main battles for this. One, physical. We will approach people in person and also attend all kinds of farmers markets and green thumb events of any like-minded individuals who just like gardening and talking about sustainable practices in food development. And also, of course, a social media campaign with the website running simultaneously. Who will we be helping? The restaurants, of course. We hope to make their spaces really pretty and have them grow their own food, which is pretty helpful to them and their customers. And then, in turn, this trickles down over to the local community, the global community, and anyone who just wants to buy our compost. We can measure our success by gauging the customer satisfaction at these restaurants, and then we can also measure the reduction in food waste in landfills. We believe our Be Dirty Walls are valuable to these restaurants because it will reduce the cost of their own ingredients that they will be working with, because they will not need to import it from elsewhere. They will have it growing on their walls. And this could also expand their customer base, because anyone interested in seeking out restaurants that have sustainable food programs like this, it might be very attractive for them, so they would choose one restaurant over another. Now to talk a little bit more about money. What this will cost us is we, of course, need to manufacture these walls, and then we need to install these walls. And so with materials and labor, that would cost some money that I can get into later. And then we also need to train our employees, to train the customers on how to best practice these growing techniques. And then up front, we would need money for a warehouse, a van, and the earth cube, so that Caitlin discussed earlier. And another way to get the word out is to attend accelerator programs, and we would need some funding to attend those. But ways to make money is we would have a rate that we would charge the restaurants for the manufacturing and installation of these Be Dirty Walls. Then we could sell any plants right out of the cubbies if the restaurants are interested in doing so. And we could also sell all of our excess compost to any interested organization or individual who is interested. And Then what we hope to do with our surplus of money or profits, we, at least to start, would like to put it right back into our business to expand as soon as possible. We have a few ideas. And then also support local gardens, public parks, and community green organizations. So this here is just a more concise way of putting our business model if anyone would like to look at it later. It's everything I just kind of went over. Now, right off the bat, as a startup, we have startup costs, including our warehouse rental. It is not downtown Brooklyn. It's relatively affordable because of that. It's more on the outskirts, but that is looking at around $4,000 per month, which obviously is not nothing, but it would be extremely helpful to house all of our materials, kickstart our own composting, taking in the vast amounts of food scraps that we will be collecting from restaurants, and growing plants. Then a company van, of course, to transport our materials and ourselves to make this a lot easier. Now here we have included on the right-hand side what we are offering the restaurants as service packages. So it just includes the structural cost of our product and the installation of that, the routine maintenance that we will be providing for them, and of course the seeds and cups. But right below that we have listed why we have these costs and the breakdown of what it is costing us. So we are depending on not only an upfront fee of the installation, but also a subscription fee coming to a revenue of about $15 a month for each restaurant per meter of our Be Dirty Walls. And so with these numbers, we have estimated that we require a startup cost of $100,000. And here again is a cost breakdown of the specific units and services we will be providing, if anyone is interested in looking at that.
And in conclusion, is our project feasible? Yes, to an extent. Only if we can get that $100,000 to start up. Otherwise, getting revenue and a steady state of revenue to actually continue the project would be very difficult. But otherwise, yes. Are there any questions?
Hello, good job. I would eat here. I just had a question as to, like, I know a lot of foods are not compostable. I didn't know if you researched how much would be compostable and how much wouldn't, because I know a lot of meats and bones and different things that people would leave on their plates are not compostable.
So yes, most organic waste is compostable. We found that these systems from the earth cubes, they actually can compost dairy and meat, most of it, not all of it, but that would help combat some of that waste. Otherwise, there is still going to be some waste created, but ultimately way less than expected, or usual, yeah.
Congratulations, great presentation, cool idea. I would also eat at a restaurant that had a green wall. Green walls are super cool. Lori also says, thank you for the great presentation. He, again, has 3 questions. So number 1, the composting process can be quite smelly. How do you plan to deal with this on-site composting? This was also my question as well.
So we wanted to offer the option for the restaurants to buy the earth cubes and compost themselves, but in our warehouse, that's going to be one of our main productions, is to do the composting ourselves for them. So we'll collect the food waste and compost in bulk and then deliver back the compost once it's completed for them to use for planting. So they wouldn't necessarily have to keep the compost on site at the restaurants.
In addition, if your compost does smell, that does mean you're doing something wrong, because that usually means there's molds growing, and that is what is usually producing the smell, other than the actual soil themselves, which is technically a smell.
And the earth cubes are smell proof, so that's why they're like such a special system and pretty expensive compared to traditional, simpler composting methods, so that would really help combat the smell for them.
Lori, second question. If I understand correctly, your business plans to provide composting services, but also plans to help restaurants grow food locally using the Be Dirty Walls. Have you considered the viability of these two value propositions separately, and have you considered these two as separate businesses? And just to put my 2 cents in, like, would it be possible for restaurants to do like one part, like the growing, and potentially do composting themselves if they have that infrastructure in place already?
So I guess our main goal with implementing the vertical gardens was almost as a way of free advertisement for ourselves. The composting service is more just like our main focus, but by visualizing it at restaurants, people are more willing to invest in the service and also help the restaurant themselves, because they see this wall and then they're like, oh, that's like really cool, and then they talk to the service people and they're like, oh yeah, it's actually completely compostable and all that stuff. So it's really to help with the branding, but also because we do want, if people visually see where their food is coming from, people are more likely to go to that restaurant and buy the food, or at least in areas like Brooklyn.
In addition, selling the excess compost that we make was something we thought of once we had started the project, because after research, you can actually make a lot more revenue and make our money back a lot faster if we sell the excess compost, so it makes installing the walls a lot more feasible.
Just to add, we did have different packages so very flexible. If a restaurant doesn't want to compost because of the smell or the work, we would pick up that food waste for them. If they just want to do the walls, they can just do the walls. If they want to compost themselves, that's obviously their choice. So we kind of want to be as flexible as possible with the business needs, size, etc.
And question number 3. Kitchen to table sounds like a highly marketable feature for restaurants. Why do you think this is not already being done? How does your company address these barriers specifically?
Well, right off the bat, space. Brooklyn is in a very densely populated urban area with very small restaurants, and vertical farming techniques might overcome this burden. Trying to get gardens that are indoor, outdoor, any available surface, as long as they're willing to put it there, would work.
Sorry, what was the second part of the question? Right. Well, I also think that in addition to what Jackson said, it's not necessarily easy to grow and it could be very difficult. So we would help manage these walls every quarterly, basically, check in on them, or even monthly, check in on how the plants are growing, if they need any help with it. And yeah, I mean, obviously it will take some maintenance from the restaurant as well of watering these plants, and we have specific system for that as well. It ultimately was more easy to buy food from other places rather than to produce it yourself and also be a restaurant, but we're trying to make it as easy for them as possible with these Be Dirty Walls.
And to add on to that, like, I think the biggest lure from not growing your own plants is the fact that you have to put in work to grow them. It's much easier to just go down to the supermarket or to wherever the restaurant purchases their food and just buy it there. And it's also much cheaper than local foods, because if you're a local grower, you often have to compete with those costs of grocery stores. So really, like, the best thing about our system is that it is actually self-sustainable with the exception of planting them in the pots. So like, it has a sustainable irrigation system, and as well as if you want to put it on the exterior of your building, it can be fueled with rainwater. It'll evenly distribute the water amongst the plants. So our idea was just to make it more appealing to an audience of people who work in a restaurant that might not have the time to grow, but they can utilize it in a way that benefits them in multiple ways, not only just looking better as like a marketing standpoint, but also to provide the foods for them, because it just costs less to plant your own food.
Okay, great. So my questions have mostly to do with like, I'm not so familiar with the restaurant market in Brooklyn, but your system, I don't believe, considers lighting? Is this going to be an issue in a lot of restaurants in Brooklyn, or is there a specific reason that this would work in some locations and not in other locations?
Well, with COVID, we saw a huge rise in outdoor dining. Most restaurants in the city have a whole little outdoor shed section with walls inside and outside that do get direct light. So that there, the storefront itself would not run into that light problem. Indoors, that could be a problem, and we could look into some affordable and efficient LED grow light methods that we can also equip these walls with.
And would this be affected seasonally, like versus winter versus spring, and like, do you foresee that being an issue in your business model?
Yeah, so definitely in the warmer months, we'd get much more crops and much more harvesting. But in the winter, there's definitely a possibility for more leafy greens, especially if it's indoors. There are some plants you can grow indoors all year round. Like lettuce is one of them, but I did include it in the fall. And yeah, I think there's definitely more research that is required. I saw that you could grow mushrooms basically year round, but they are a little more complicated and they're fungus, so I didn't want to jump into that. Yeah, but there could be a different supply of these vegetables throughout the year, but that's with any other agricultural field, really.
And because, depending on the scale of your wall, you could honestly grow enough plants for storage. People could probably, if they have a system large enough, they could definitely like grow enough food during the spring and summer months to just store in their restaurants, and then maybe during the year just grow leafy greens or even just regular grasses, just to purify the air and just make it look nice. But yeah, that's really the biggest thing.
So just to clarify, these walls are like, these plants are planted into walls that are vertically oriented, or are they like diagonal at any point? They're vertical.
So like there's aluminum bars like aligned on the wall, and you basically mount these cups to the wall, and they're basically flush to the wall, but they're angled so that the plants can almost like angled up towards the sun, or if you want rainwater towards them, and you'll basically put cups into these. Yes, so actually a lot of those plants are able to grow vertically. Supposedly so. Did we research that? But yes, most plants are actually able to grow vertically. It's just people are intimidated by this concept, but plants will literally try to find sunlight in any way, shape, or form they can, so they will literally move to where they need to grow.
One more question. This is my biggest question. Have you considered like what the FDA would like think about like in-house composting, and like if that would be a barrier to entry for your company?
With the composting systems, I think that could work, especially if they're put outside of restaurants rather than indoors. That's definitely a question, and I don't know. We have not looked fully into the FDA, but in what their regulations are, but I think it'd definitely be more feasible outside than indoors as of right now, but it's something we should look into.
I know in the state of Virginia you can. I'm not sure exactly in New York, but there are plenty of restaurants that have in-house gardens actually like right next to your table, and you can just grab herbs if you would like. So it's definitely possible. I've seen composting trash cans as well inside the restaurant. But yeah, I think really the biggest thing is probably the system will actually have to be on the exterior of the restaurant and just like not in the restaurant area in terms of cleanliness.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I love this. And like we all went to Kredema, for example, and like it's always fully booked there for locals and tourists. You have to book weeks in before. And for example, I'm here in Iceland, so I think a lot of Iceland stuff, I guess. But but like I can really see this could be popular and like to just really drag people to eat there. And I think it's just really also nice to see how cheap the startup cost is. So yeah, just really good kudos to you.
Thank you. So, small group, that concludes our presentations. Thank you all so much, and thank you for anyone watching. Lori, I know you're there. I don't know anyone else. But yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about how it's amazing, like how much you have gotten done in the last few days. Like, yeah, we had 8 days to work on this, but we were out doing things every day, and you literally came up with like entire business plans in like the nights, because I made you work into the night, which is insane. So like I want you to like really think about like using the golden circle and also the business model canvas potentially in the future, and that like your ideas can have such a big impact in the future. And I hope that you take this learning experience from doing this project in such a short amount of time and like developing so far in just like over a week, and take that with you into the future, because like I don't know, maybe I'm looking at the next Steve Jobs or something, but in a sustainable, better way. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for all of your presentations. I enjoyed them all thoroughly. I love all your projects, and yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Wow, so cool. Are we still live or? Yeah. Okay, we're done. Hands free.